you're from Florida, living in New York, maybe if I didn't have the grandma killer, Governor Cuomo, who sent 6,000 plus elderly into the nursing homes, I would have stayed.
Oh my God,
So this
her
woman,
intros are so
she's such a role
long.
model, she's fierce, she's powerful.
This is like the
and
worst
can't wait to
MC
see
ever.
what's to come of her. So check this little clip
Fire
out,
her, hire
and
me.
then you'll hear from Governor Noeme herself. Thank you.
I'm South Dakota Governor Newsom. There's no place in America like South Dakota. Mount Rushmore, our country's enduring symbol of freedom, makes its home here for good reason. Because our state celebrates freedom like none other, especially for anyone running a company. When it comes to supporting growth and eliminating heavy-handed government interference, South Dakota means business. In our state, you won't find the restrictions that hold companies back in other places. South Dakota offers freedom from corporate and personal income taxes, freedom from red tape and regulation, and a business-friendly environment that's second to none. Here in South Dakota, we trust our people. We respect their rights. We won't shut them down. We allow them to make their own decisions, to innovate and succeed with less government to get in the way. And South Dakota isn't just the best place in America to do business. It's also the best place to live, work, and play. Our people are outstanding. These are welcoming. Our quality of life is unmatched. And we're surrounded by some of the world's most spectacular scenery. If you like what you see, if you value our approach to reducing government and increasing personal freedom, we'd love to have you come join us. Come grow your company, live your life, achieve your dreams. We can make it happen for you right now. Because South Dakota means business.
I don't remember a time where we didn't work, and where we didn't work as a family. Everything we did together. And from the time I was a real little girl, I was outside with my dad. We lived on a ranch and farmed, and so we were chasing cows, riding horses, driving tractors, and we did it together. So the one thing that I think has been a special gift to me growing up was that I grew up with a family that knew how to work and focused on the importance of work and the dignity that came with it. I loved being outside with my dad. All I wanted to do was to stay on the farm and to continue to work outside with animals and on the land. So I think that changed pretty dramatically when I was in college and my dad was killed in an accident. So I came back and took over as general manager of the operation. But we got hit with bad tax policy, with the death tax, that hit our operation at a time of tragedy, and it made me angry. So that's really what made the shift in my life, was recognizing that we needed normal people that had been running businesses, weighing in on policy, that we really were the best informed on what the real life consequences were of that policy. We as policymakers should never quit working to make sure we're taking care of those families the best we can too.
And I feel like now I have to give a speech. You know everything about me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Governor Noeme. And Governor of the greatest state in the nation, South Dakota. But let's be real honest. None of you people knew who I was 6 months ago. The only reason that you know who I am today is because for the last 6 months, the Liberals Rachel Maddow, Elizabeth Warren have been kicking me in the head every single night on national news, telling me that I made every wrong decision for my people in my state. The media, the national media, my media in South Dakota said I was being irresponsible, that I was not making good decisions to protect people, and that is why most of the people in this country have heard about my name and have focused on South Dakota recently. So I'm going to go through, they asked me specifically to talk about how I've made my decisions in South Dakota and what I based those on, but I think in order for you to understand the decisions that I've made, you need to understand a little bit about me. And that will be covered in some of my story, but I think it's important for you to know that from the time I was a real little girl, from 5 or 6 years old, I just wanted to grow up and become a farmer. I loved my dad. He was my best friend. So I just wanted to go through school and come back and farm and ranch with him. Unfortunately, when I was killed, or when I was in college, my dad was killed in an accident. Now, he was a cowboy. He was tough. So the ways that we just spent every day working together, he would wake us up in the morning by yelling up the stairs, "Get up! More people die in bed than anywhere else." So that's the kind of dad I grew up with. And even our vacations were work. It's as soon as we would finish working on the farm or the ranch, he'd say, "Christy, go catch the horses." And we'd go to the mountains for 2 weeks elk hunting or something. So he was a really special individual. So when he passed away, it devastated our family. Like, I couldn't even figure out how we were going to make it through the next week, much less our lifetime without him and his leadership. My older sister was living in Georgia. At the time, my older brother was in Oklahoma. And my younger brother was still in high school. So I ended up quitting college and coming home and becoming the general manager of the operation. We were farming thousands of acres. We had a cow-calf operation, feedlots, many businesses, and it was a lot to take on. But what happened was we immediately got notification from the IRS that we owed death taxes. So I could not figure out how we could have a tragedy in our family. All of a sudden, I owed the federal government hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we had a lot of land, machinery, and cattle, but we didn't have any money to pay. So people ask, how come I got involved in government and politics? It was because of that. I took out a loan, it took me 10 years to pay off those taxes. We almost lost our operation. Going through that, started a hunting lodge to try to make more money, a restaurant. My mom bought a restaurant because she thought it would be fun. Any of you guys own restaurants? I mean, that is my least favorite business. I mean, God bless you, but that's a nickel and dime business. If nobody comes in the door, you're not paying your bills. But, so we ran lots of different businesses, did pay off those taxes, but I also started to show up and go to meetings. And I cared passionately about tax reform. I cared about normal, everyday people giving their perspective on policy. They were talking a little earlier about women, and now women serving and giving their perspective in elected office, but in other places. There's just one little tidbit, sideline I want to say to you guys. There's no such thing as women's issues. There's just a women's perspective on every single issue. And we need all those perspectives around the table in order to have better policy. When you have a diversity of perspectives around the table, that's when you end up with better laws that work for people, that actually last for a long period of time and create new opportunities. So, don't let the left get you all tied up and that there's only certain issues that women care about. Women have a different perspective on every single issue. And we need your voice there talking and weighing in on that. So I got elected to the legislature in South Dakota, served there as the assistant majority leader, and then ran for Congress in 2010. When I got elected to Congress, it was one of the top 5 races of the nation that year. It was a tough one. I often refer to it as a knife fight in a ditch. I mean, it was a tough race. But I got to Congress and I looked around and I recognized that we could have an opportunity to write policy, to vote, and to do things. And when I served there, I had the opportunity to work with President Trump to do some big things. I served on the Ways and Means Committee. Has anybody ever heard of the Ways and Means Committee? Somebody described it to me once as the committee that has the most ways it can be mean. Because all the healthcare policy went through their tax policy goes through regulatory trade agreements. About 80% of what goes through Congress touches through the Ways and Means Committee. But had the chance to work with President Trump on tax reform, which was my passion. Work on these trade deals that he has finalized. worked on lifting the regulatory burden off of businesses. But I also recognize that in Congress, there's certain things you can do, but governors are the CEOs of their states. You can set an agenda, you can make decisions, you can really impact people's life by being a governor. So I decided to come home and run for governor. And when I ran for governor, I talked about South Dakota could be an example to the nation. We're a small state. We don't have a lot of people, but we can do things that other states can't do. I envisioned that South Dakota could be a pilot project for big reforms, things that we could champion to strengthen families, bring new industries into the state, workforce development, and then that would be an example to the rest of the country. I had no idea it was going to come through a pandemic, that opportunity would come to us. So I'll go through a little bit of the last 6 months. Back in December, January, we started to hear about COVID-19. And I started to do what every other governor in this country did. I talked to my healthcare experts. I studied what was going on in other countries. I looked at the models that were coming and what we could expect to see. I looked at other states as the virus touched them. On March 10th is when we got our first virus cases in the state of South Dakota. I had consulted with my Department of Health, my epidemiologist, got all that expertise, but I also spent a lot of time talking to my general counsel. I spent a lot of time talking to constitutional attorneys. I wanted to make sure that I knew what authorities I had as governor, but also what authorities I didn't have as governor. When you have a leader overstep their authority in a time of crisis, that's when you break this country. That's when we lose what's special. We took a very different path than a lot of other states. When I made my decisions, I realized the science and the data and the facts of what we're saying that we can't stop the virus. We just can't. We can slow it down, and we can make sure that we have the healthcare capacity to take care of those individuals that should need it. And that's how I talk to my people. I said, we're going to make sure that we're working together to focus on healthcare capacity, not talk about how many positive cases we have, because really the only thing that we can try to control is making sure that our healthcare systems are there. We have ICU beds and we have ventilators available to people. Now, Fauci told me I'd have 10,000 people in the hospital from COVID-19 on my worst day. My worst day so far has been less than 250. Throughout the last several months, some of the decisions that I made is that I never once closed a business in our state. Because I don't have the authority to tell you that your business is an essential. We never issued a shelter in place. We haven't mandated any masks. What I did is I stood up and I told people, I said, listen, I'm going to give you all the information that I have. I'm going to tell you the truth. And I had 45 press conferences in 60 days. And I said, I'm going to give you all the ability to learn about the virus just like I have. I said, and then I'm going to trust you. I'm going to give you personal responsibility to do whatever you need to do to protect your family, but also be able to keep a roof over your heads, to keep food on the table, to take care of your customers that come into your business and protect them, but also take care of your employees and make sure that they still have a job. And our people appreciated it. Not only did I say I would trust them, but they trusted me. And we have gotten through the pandemic in a remarkable way in the state of South Dakota. Some of the effects that we're seeing today now is that we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the nation. We have one of the lowest death rates in the nation as well. That we have also seen, South Dakota doesn't have an income tax. We don't have a personal income tax or a corporate income tax. We don't have a personal property tax. Basically, I've got a 4.5-cent sales tax, and that's the revenue that the state government uses to fund just taking care of people. A very thrifty, well-run state government is what we have in our state. budget surplus. While almost every other state is losing money and hemorrhaging at the seams. My sales tax is up 110% over what it normally is in a normal year when the legislature adopted. My economic development department right now, I could triple the size of it, and I wouldn't be able to answer the phone for all the people that are moving their businesses and their families to the state of South Dakota. Our real estate market has gone crazy, and when the President Trump gave us the opportunity and the flexibility to keep those extended, elevated unemployment benefits, I was the only state in the nation that said, thank you for the flexibility, Mr. President, but we don't need it, and turned it down. That's what was interesting, was the unemployment claims that we did have in South Dakota at that time, after we turned down that elevated level of benefits,
She's a
the very
5%er.
next week we cut our unemployment claims in half. So people that were at home and could go back to work said, I guess it's time to go back to work, and they have. So we are doing a great job in our state getting through this pandemic. And tourism is our #2 industry. You saw part of our economic development promotion materials, but #1 is agriculture. Our second largest industry is tourism. My tourism right now in South Dakota is at 148%. I think everybody in the country that wants to feel a little bit of freedom is coming to South Dakota.
Yep. I believe it.
We've done some fantastic events in South Dakota. We talked about the Mount Rushmore event. I hope you all watched it. It was remarkable that the president came and we had the opportunity to celebrate our country. We also, though, hosted the first spectator-attended professional sporting event in South Dakota. We hosted the first PGA tournament that had spectators in attendance. We hosted our state fair and had 0 cases tied to our entire state fair. And then we also hosted the Sturgis Motorcycle Bike Rally.
Woo!
We had over 500,000 people there in South Dakota for 10 days with about 130 cases tied to the entire event. Don't believe what you heard on the line media, what they said about Sturgis. Absolutely false and not true. And we had a fantastic event where people came and enjoyed their freedoms and enjoyed motorcycles and the beauty of South Dakota. So we have proven that we can get through these things together, be smart, protect public health, but still enjoy our way of life and give people the opportunity to do what they've always done and celebrate a little bit of normal. There's a couple of things that I want to encourage all of you to do. The one thing that I've noticed throughout this pandemic is how fear controls people and how the media will perpetuate that fear to set an agenda. So I'm going to encourage you to do a couple of things. First of all, we get really emotional right now. I've talked about this quite a bit, but we live in a country that loves to be offended. We are addicted to being offended.
Yep.
Yeah. Somebody says something like, oh my gosh, I've never heard anything so offensive before, and we start talking to all of our friends and neighbors, but I'm just going to ask you to just get over yourselves.
Yeah.
Okay?
Please. You hear that, Alan?
Some years ago, they said, Christy, people are going to throw out offenses at you all the time. You're the one who decides if you want to go pick it up and carry it around with you, and then you're the one carrying the burden. So just let them go, because what we really need to do in this election cycle, when we're talking about the fact that we have a president that gets up every single day and fights for this country because he loves it dearly and wants to protect it. We have a candidate in Joe Biden that absolutely wants to destroy America. And that is the choice that we have. You can see the consequences of poor leadership in these Democrat-run cities, where there's violence on the streets, the law is not being upheld, and they are disenfranchising families that are just trying to raise their kids in a safe environment. There is no mother that wants to raise her child on the streets of Portland today. No mother in this country wants to do that. And that's the consequences of poor leadership that comes out of the Democratic Party today. So while we're talking to people during this election cycle, I want you to do a couple of things. First of all, I want you to be happy. I want you to prove to people that we have hope. That all we basically did in South Dakota was, we have Republicans and Democrats, and Republicans talk about their party platform, they talk about what they believe. We just did it. We just did what we all say we believe, and the consequences of that has been amazing blessings that our people are living under, and that they're happy. We will bring more people to our party, we'll bring more people to the president by being optimistic and talking about how this man has kept his promises. He has done everything he told us that he would do. I couldn't even count up how many lies Kamala Harris told the other night. It was unbelievable to me. This president keeps his word and he follows through. So when we're talking about that, be optimistic about it. Draw people to us. That we have a vision for the future, and it's 4 more years of greatness coming out of President Donald J. Trump's leadership. And that is what we have to be grateful for. The second one is, I know you all work every day to tell that story. I know you get up and you exhaust yourselves, making sure that people are educated. I recognized throughout this pandemic, I couldn't just go out and tell people my decisions. I needed to educate them on why I was making those decisions. I needed to talk about, I didn't do this because the Constitution says I don't have the authority to do that. I talked about the importance of our history, the importance of our leaders, why we shouldn't be tearing down monuments, why we know that the leaders that brought us through our history were flawed individuals, but they led us through challenging times, and they can teach us so much more about our future if we would just pay attention and learn from that path that they walked. You have to have those conversations with people today. Educate them when you're having those conversations, and then do more. So many times we know the people we don't want to have those conversations with because we don't want to get in a fight. But all you have to do is, when you're out pumping gas today, filling your car up with fuel, ask the person at the pump next to you, who are you voting for and why? When you're at the grocery store and you're in the checkout lane, that is a lot of people that have nowhere to go right then. Ask them why. When you go to church, oh my goodness, having these conversations at church, yes, have these conversations.
Yes.
Absolutely. Who are you voting for and why? And then listen. And then educate them. Don't just tell them, I'm voting this way and walk away. Tell them why. Educate them. And do it in a way that makes them happy. I can't imagine what our kids see when they turn on the news at night, how they feel. They deserve to have people around them that show that we do have hope. We woke up.
That's right, she's 5% right there.
99% of the other people in the world just because we woke up in the United States. So I'm going to quit there, but don't forget, be optimistic, be happy. You have the answer for what's right for this country, preserving this country, and then go have those conversations and do even more, because we absolutely have to win this presidential election, and we have to get President Trump back in the White House. So
That's right.
let's go to any questions that you may have. I think we've got a little bit of time. Or comments, wisdom.
That's 5%. That's 5%. Okay. She stood up against the media. She stood up against Dr. Fauci. She stood up against everybody. And she says, I'm going to treat Americans like Americans. And I'm going to stay out of the way. That's 5%. Okay? What she just said is 5%. You ask why, you listen, and then you reply with facts. She bad. She's a baddie. I love her already.
Well, I had a prominent national reporter tell me the other day, email me and say,